This morning, we're going to be joined by Adam Morke. He is a tax partner at Stern Cohen Accountants. It's a mid-sized accounting firm in Toronto, servicing owner-managed businesses. Adam, are you there?
I am. Thanks for having me this morning.
No problem. So we're here to really chat about not the greatest fear that I have, but I don't like the fact that many, many months ago, the government decided that they wanted to increase the capital gains tax. And what this means for investors, people like myself, my clients, and a lot of people out there who all of a sudden rush to sell properties before June the 25th. And so now I read in the paper that, wait a second, let's dial this back. So actually, why don't we start back again? Adam, why don't you just talk to us about what were the proposed capital gains tax changes?
Yeah, so back earlier in the year, the federal government proposed in their 2024 budget to increase the capital gains inclusion rate from 50% to 2/3 on gains that are realized after June 25th. But then they said for individuals, we're only going to apply this increased inclusion rate on annual capital gains over and above $250,000. So what does that mean? I often talk about those 50% change to 2/3 inclusion rate, and people think, oh, that means I'm paying something like 67% tax on a capital gain, and that's not the case. So I just want to explain that in a little detail to say that the capital gains inclusion rate determines how much of the capital gain is included in taxable income, and then that's subject to someone's marginal rate. So as an example, that means for someone that's in the top tax bracket in Ontario, a capital gain would be going from about 27% up to about 36%. So it's still, a pretty big increase, but I don't want people to think it's changing from 50% to a 2/3 tax rate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I thought it was interesting that Ottawa has actually yet to pass this law. So there's all these people that were panicked and sold properties, but it could be a nothing burger. Would that be correct?
It could be. I mean, I'll say it's common in Canada's tax system that we have draft tax legislation that can take a while to go through committees and have various adjustments made before it's passed into law. But really the difference here is in Parliament, we have this conservative filibuster that's been going on for the past several months that's really prevented, I think, practically any legislation from passing through Parliament other than the GST-HST holiday that just recently went through. So, we have that combined with kind of the current situation of our federal government. I think it was yesterday that we had the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, release something to say that he intends to bring down the government when the Parliament returns in January. So I think if that's the case, if the federal government falls in January, I think that, really changes the analysis here on whether this change is going to go through. If it doesn't, if the Parliament doesn't fall and somehow the Liberals stay in power until next October when they have to have an election, then it's still possible that this legislation could pass in time.
Wow. So if we're looking at affecting the 2024 tax year and most people have to submit their taxes by, let's say, April, let's say, the government does not fall in late January when they go back. And so we've got this period of a few months. I guess at what point is that drop dead deadline that if they don't pass it by whatever, March the 5th, I don't know, whatever the date is, does that mean that people are in the clear for the 2024 tax year? Do you have a sense of what that date would be?
Well, so and again, I guess I should say the custom in Canada is that we file tax returns based on draft tax legislation. So I know the CRA has said they're updating their tax forms, and therefore all the tax preparation software companies are going to be updating their software to reflect that this increased inclusion rate. So effectively, everyone, at least individuals that's filing returns this year, is going to be filing using returns that show this increased rate. And that's, I think, really going to be in place unless either the government falls, or unless there's something passed to say that this legislation isn't going through. So as far as actually filing for the 2024 tax year, I think unless the government falls, early in the year, probably January or February, I would expect that all the tax forms at least are certainly going to be reflecting this new inclusion rate, which means then people will likely file tax returns reflecting the inclusion rate. And then if this legislation never passes, everyone's going to have to go and amend their tax return to take out this enhanced inclusion rate. Or I think CRA has said that they will go and adjust the tax returns, but I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to do that in a timely manner, because there's a lot of people that'll be impacted.
Wow. That's crazy. Like, it's just nuts, because people were in a panic over this, right? I mean, and I believe there's people who sold family cottages because of this. Do you have people like that sort of, I guess, at your firm that have made selling decisions based on this new rules coming in?
Yeah, I think in very select situations. And so by that, I mean where we've had clients that were otherwise planning on selling the asset maybe in the next year or two, they kind of pushed up that sale to have the sale realized before the budget change. Or the other kind of prime situation is someone that I'll say is in poor health, and they think they're maybe nearing the end of their life, and otherwise if someone passes and they don't have a surviving spouse, we pretend for tax purposes that they sold all their assets on their date of death. So in those two situations, we did have people that were selling assets before the change. But beyond those situations, I think most clients really didn't take any action because they thought this government's going to be out probably at minimum, or at maximum, I should say, by next October. And I think they're thinking they're just going to wait it out and see if a conservative government in the future eliminates this change, and therefore they didn't sell assets.
Wow, that might have been a very wise move. Adam Morke, thank you so much for joining me this morning. It's been very interesting. I know I'll reach out to you again for sure.
Thanks so much for having me.
Perfect. Thanks so much.